Okay, good morning, everyone. We're just going to give it a few more minutes here just to get everyone settled in and get everyone into the room. So yeah, we'll just give it a bit of a minute before we get started today. Okay, we'll give it another minute and then we'll get started here shortly, okay? Okay, I guess we can get things started here. I just want to thank everyone. Good morning. Thank everyone here for joining us for our September monthly dedicated locator Q&A session. Just a bit of a housekeeping once again. On your top left corner, you have the raise hand function. You also have the Q&A chat. So at the end of this, if you have any questions that you want to share with the group and such, just type it in there. And you should be able to unmute yourself as well too if you have any questions that you want to ask directly to the group. And also that this session will be recorded. And we'll, as any typical monthly Q&A that we have, we'll be sharing it into our YouTube channel for anyone that missed it for this month. Okay, now before we proceed here with our session, we want to recognize that today is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. So let's take a moment to reflect on our past and envision a future where justice and respect are woven into the fabric of our society. By embracing this day with sincerity and action, we honor the resilience of Indigenous communities and take steps towards healing and unity. We encourage everyone to take the time today to listen, learn, and engage with Canadian and Indigenous history. So I just want to do a quick recap and update for the past month here. July was the last time we all met here. We in the July session we had the opportunity to have a review and have a better overview and understanding of the compliance contravention on DL. So it was a very informative session that was joined with us by compliance supervisor Corey Officer. We also had in the midst of that, we had the ministry held their consultation. Now we expect them to communicate their findings onto that. We also had our first inaugural OEC trade show. Sorry, can I get someone to mute that one, please? Thank you. So we had our first inaugural trade show that I unfortunately missed due to illness, but we heard great feedbacks and wonderful presentation, including our DL session there. So that was great to see a great turnout. Hoping that we continue that more on a yearly basis. And last year is that with the DL portal developments, we do have it all developed, and we're now in the beta testing with select project owners and affected UIOs. Now, just going over the DL portal, just want to give you guys a quick snippet. We are on the beta testing, as mentioned. Just giving you a brief snippet of the new changes that will be interfacing into the portal there. This, what you see here, is what a submission would look like now to the portal. Now, previously, this is on a PDF form submitted by a project owner, which is now integrated to our DL portal. So the submission will be going to the portal, and each infrastructure owner will have the access and view these notifications to the portal. So you'll be logging into there. Now, in the coming later months, we will be hosting several webinars and workshops as we slowly introduce the webinars to the public whole, especially for the infrastructure owners to get acquainted to what you would see in your end and such. But in the meantime, we're just working with few select project owner and few select UIOs affected areas to get the beta testing working, and then from there we'll be introducing this to the existing project. And as of 2025, early 2025, we'll be looking to roll this out as a full utilization of the DL portal. So it's exciting news. There's been in quite developments for quite a while now here. Okay, just giving you guys a brief update to our trending. We're still projecting similar trends that we saw in previous years at this time of the year. Comparing to last year's steep decline in July through September, we found out that many projects then had to scale back due to the spike in interest rate and have exhausted their project, have exhausted their year project budget earlier than anticipated. Now, with this year, the interest rate are being stabilized. So this time of the year, we saw a less gradual decline, not only in DL, but also through the public stream this time of the year. As we look at the trend from previous years as well, too, we anticipate that there will be a year-end push for some active projects to wrap up the 2024. We also seen several project owners submitting their DL project notices now in preparation for 2025 push. So, in the coming months of September, October, we just see a bit of a incline of usage again, just like in previous year. Many of these are just projects wrapping up, final areas that they need to comply, but at the same time, too, in preparation for the 2025 push. Now, kind of relating to that trend, on our July update, we were at 40 year-to-date DL project submission. Now, you can see there on August and September, we saw a spike in August with 21 project submission. Mainly that is from a one ASIP ISP making a push for construction from now till 2025. So with these projects well within the 90-day submission process, going back to the trend in the previous slide, we can only anticipate a spike in usage to wrap up 2024 into the peak season of the start of 2025. So in the past year, we see many project owners take advantage of milder weathers for the winter time. So there, we're seeing a lot of projects positioned to that as well too, setting up their project now in preparation for off-peak season for 2025, where we see really DL project users thrive during those off-peak seasons as they have those resources available. They have the Locator resource available then to proceed and work all year round. Now, we had our inaugural trade show in September, just this past September. Can I get a round of raised hands here and test the function that you have there for those who attended in our inaugural trade show and had a chance to listen into Adam's DL presentation? Yeah, so great. We had the opportunity to review during that presentation. We had an opportunity to review the milestones through that session. And for those who missed it, not to worry, we'll go through it today. But today will be a little bit different. I want to do an exercise with this group, and this is where I want full participation and interactive between you guys. So what we're doing here is that we have identified 4 key milestones within the DL submission process. at our trade show presentation, we looked at the preliminary actions and action plan to consider within each of these milestones, but we also identify DL project checklists for each stakeholder to consider to help them navigate successfully through the DL submission process. So with each milestone, which we'll go through in a moment here, we also recognize that each action step from each stakeholder as a group here, we want to focus on one milestone today and build through a DL project checklist from a stakeholder's perspective. So let's go through it here with the milestone. I'll go step by step here with you guys. So the initial milestone starts with the project owner and the intent of submitting the project, their project in DL. Now, as a project owner looking to utilize DL, we encourage to initiate, the conversation with our team in a very early stages so that we can start weaving through requirements, discussions, and help position the DL submission, the most efficient way, and also identifying, the affected areas and affected UIOs. Have those preliminary discussions during this time with personnels that will be involved in the project submission, so such as your subcontractors, your internal personnel who will be involved within the process, who will be answering to the DLSP, who will be answering to UIO inquiries and such. Understanding your resource such as the legal, like we all know that there are MSAs, NDAs, that is all part of this process, and understanding who will be the resources involved with that, with the legal team and such. Also within this milestones, has the project owner considered a DLSP to put forward? How do you assess that DLSP and have those conversation with our team to help you assess and look into an LSP that's looking to put forward as a DLSP in this case. In this time, we really encourage preliminary conversation with known infrastructure owners in the project area. And as you guys as infrastructure owners here, getting a heads up on upcoming projects in your area can also help get you prepared in this. So in the initial stages, really the involvement of the project owner, the DLSP, ourselves, we'll have those initial discussions for the submission and the process, and we work them through the submission process until we get the formal submission from the project owner. And then from there on, we move on to the next milestone. Now, the next milestone here is now focuses on infrastructure owners. And now with the infrastructure owner receiving the notice for review, this notice of review will be coming in from our DL team here, where we identify the affected UIOs, and we send out the email notification. Now, in this milestone, we review the submission from project owners, and then we identify the UIOs. As UIOs here, what are your next steps from here? We, in your side here, as a requirement for legislation, there is the agreeing on the DLSP with the project owner, and your next step here is providing mapping to and information to the DLSP. As a focus with underground infrastructure owner in these milestones, what are some of the things you want to consider to have in your checklist to be prepared in these milestones? Such as DLSP assessment. How do you assess your DLSP, and how do you review them within the timeframes to stay compliant? What is your onboarding process with DLSP into training them up and having the right documentation ready and such? Speaking of having the right documentation ready, obviously the draft MSAs, NDAs, are they prepared to that when you receive a project, these are readily available from your resource, from the legal team and such? Understand your time frame within all this process of the onboarding, assessment, providing the MSA, understanding the time frame of what your procedure will look like in your training. And then from that point in, you would set governance, governance with the DLSP, the project owner, to understand and have those communication, keep that open, not only to the process, but throughout the project itself, right? Now, we move on to the next milestone here, which really occurs in parallel with the previous milestone, whereas the DLSP is now the focal point here. The DLSP reaches out, or vice versa, the infrastructure owner reaches out to the DLSP to initiate the requirements and such required to provide approval on the DLSP and provide the mapping. Then once these are all fulfilled and confirmed, a suppression to your station code will be applied to the system, and then that will be removed. That will remove the notification away from the public stream and redirect it to the DLSP. Now, when we look at the focal point here for a stakeholder, which the DLSP are involved, you know, we want to look at what kind of checklist that they want to consider at this point. So for DLSPs, a project tracker outlining their timelines, follow-ups, and such to track their progress between multiple projects that they're working away. We're seeing DLSPs working with multiple project owners, multiple project areas and such. So having a good project tracker that outlines their timeframes, who they're following up with, and tracking really the progress within the submission process with multiple projects that they have, right? Identifying the training needs of their resources and onboarding process of each individual UIOs as well too. And going back again to the previous UIOs with the draft MSAs, it can go vice versa between the UIOs having that readily available. We've seen some DLSP have this a general one that's been put forward from their side that they share with UIOs if the UIOs don't have a MSA set in place. And once again, setting up that governance of setting the touch points to the process and ensuring clear line communication. Okay, now we go to the next milestone that we identify. And keep in mind, I may be going through this milestone very quickly. And there is a lot of multiple steps in between each of these milestones. We're really just identifying the key milestones here. And in between, we know there's process in between in between each stages that would factor in with the timeframes and consideration, and hence the reason why we want to identify which are these key focal milestones and help each stakeholder be prepared, have checklists set in place to ensure we're not missing anything within the gap of within the process to ensure that you're prepared, you're ready for that, right? So in the end of the last milestone here, is when the project receive 100% response from the affected UIOs. The project is now activated. The project gets activated by our team. Now the project is up and running through the DL stream, and the DLSPs are completing when and where required to locate in coordination with the project owner. So in this milestone, really, it's all stakeholders can continue to, we want to encourage that to continue to foster that collaboration and communication that was established to the process. We want to drive that through towards safer excavation sites and increase awareness through damage prevention. And it all really starts with a collaboration and open, clear communication all the way through, right? We really want to see that go through all the way from the start of the project and all the way to the end, and really even beyond the project itself, right? And this is really what we're pushing the industry to. And this really just provides a safer excavation site. There's more ice in there, and that really increases the awareness of damage prevention through. Now, so going through the milestones today, I wanted to create that exercise that we have, and we want to focus on the first milestone here. So the first milestone, we want to go back again. You can see here is the project owner, is the stakeholder involved to that, and really the first milestone is just initiating the steps to submitting a DL project notice, right? Now, some of you guys here, and we're going to take you to the next activity here and building out a DL program checklist as a project owner. Now, some of you that are joining us today as infrastructure owners, you guys do wear both hats in some scenarios, whereas you could be a project owner as well to your own infrastructure projects that are in DL, and also be the infrastructure owners that are providing the approval process or the mappings and such to other projects. So in this time, I'm gonna share you guys a whiteboard. Just bear with me here. And this is my first time doing this, so I just want to keep in mind that we are kind of going through a little test here where I want to get everyone's activity participation. So just bear with me here, and we will be sharing a whiteboard. Okay. Do you guys see a whiteboard right now? Yes, perfect. So here you guys where I'm saying, bear with me here. I did had a whiteboard prepared, but it's not reflecting. So we have an empty whiteboard here. And also we have a raised hand here. I think, Jonathan, is that just a raised hand that you have access to the whiteboard? And you guys could use the unmute button now. I'm gonna turn on my camera so you guys can see me. Great. Okay, so I may have to share a different screen here, but while you guys have your whiteboard open, this is really what we're gonna be looking at here. Just bear with me here. Sorry. Okay, so this didn't quite go out as planned, but within the whiteboard, here's what we're gonna be doing, okay? So I'm gonna just make this up here. As a project owner, we went to the first milestone there. As the milestone there, we're looking at the submission of the process. And really what we want to establish here as a group is build out a DL program checklist as a project owner on the perspective of project owners. So on the bottom corner here, you can see add text. So as a add text, I want you guys to just throw in their ideas to what you believe should be on a DL project checklist for a project owner to start a DL submission process. So in this scenario, what would you like to see as a project owner to take in consideration during the initial phases of submitting the DL project as infrastructure owner that have gone to the DL notices and such? What are some of the things that you wish or thought of with while working with project owners that could be valid to be put into a checklist here, so that way there's a check and balance to just ensure they're not missing a step or process between this initial startup. So first thing first, obviously you want to identify the areas here. So for example, identify your main work areas, right? As project owners, this is one of the things that is very key because everyone provides a generic, map selection or even just generic areas to the zone that they're working in. To be more efficient is that, as an infrastructure owner, you really want to understand where you're missing out or where you're really being affected. So getting an understanding of where the mappings would be, that would work out in that sense. So, these are some of the things that we want to work with here. So if you guys want to use the text button here, oh, just bear with me here, guys. Do you guys have access to the text part? Or can you guys use the mic function? Give me a little bit visibility to what you guys see as users here.
I don't see anything to add text, Marco.
Oh, it doesn't give you an add text. Okay.
No, it just says whiteboarding in progress, but there wasn't
doesn't
I think
give
really
you
at the bottom there's a bar that says add
there.
text. It has
Yeah.
some tools, but I don't know if everyone sees the same.
Do you guys see this tool right here? Do you see my hand at the bottom?
No, I don't.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll go through it myself here. It's really a fail. We tested out and it looked like it seemed like it's be working. So let me do it this way here as a team. Okay. Let's try to figure this out. Okay. So do you guys see the screen now? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes, I see a DL program checklist.
Okay, so this was the whiteboard, what it is. So with this, I want participation within the project, within the group here, whether or not you want to put it onto the chat or just unmute yourself. Any ideas that you want to put in there as a project checklist, and we can go through it together here. And let me just make sure we have the full access. Okay, so I'll start it off identifying project work area in a shareable file. Anyone else have an idea here? Raise of hands. Chat. What should we consider in the beginning portion? Creating those communication between UIOs, understanding who their resources are. Resources within the, your organization, who will be answering to the DLSPs.
Marco, it's Leah.
Yeah.
I would like to see, I mean, if I had a choice, the total distance of required locates. So how many kilometers of locates would be required?
Okay, so project information. So better project information, i.e. total distance.
Yes, please. Thanks.
Yeah, that's good consideration having that in there. Okay, perfect. So as a project owner looking to utilize DL there, what are some of the things that they have to consider within the process? To start it off between, to start it off within the 90 days, right? In consideration of anyone else that you want to take a jab at it?
How about the cost? Who is going to bear the cost? The project owner or the contractor who is doing the digging?
That's good to establish that cost, contractor or
Because
project owner.
technically is the digging is being done by the contractor and it should be included in the cost that a contractor should bear.
Yeah, no, that's a really good identification to the checklist, so identifying who will be covering certain costs within the process. So that's definitely something that could be considered in there.
Because I actually encountered a locator request from a contractor. I have sent him asked for additional information. We had a pole going down from one side. We have a pole, two poles basically on both sides of a road, and our underground cables are going from one pole from under the road and coming out from the other side of the pole and going into the transmission line.
Yeah.
So the image that we received, it was not that exact as per the actual layouts on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So I requested additional information if their digging is near that pole, or then they need a dedicated locator for that. And if it's away from that pole, then we are fine. They can just proceed. So this is the specific scenario. If they are digging near to the pole, then they need a dedicated locator, and then the cost comes in.
Okay. No, that's a great example. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else as infrastructure owners, when you initially receive the notice of a dedicated locator project, what is the first communication you work with the project owner or even ourselves here? That would be in consideration into this checklist, right?
Yes, in my case, basically there is the contact information of contractor given. I normally call them or send them an email at the given email address, and basically amend the notification as per required. For example, if I'm fine with it, I just complete the notification, or if I need additional information, like in the example I just said, I check the option which says additional information required.
Okay, perfect. So contact information, who to reach out for that, to reach out for UIOs. So a lot of projects that we see, there is a project owner and there are contractors. Usually the contractors are the field people that would have a better understanding to the processes and such. As UIOs, who is better off to get that information to the exact work scope, whether or not would be the main project owner, or would that information go to a delivery manager of the areas and such. So having that contact information and knowing the resource, who will be assigning or who you'll be assigning to be in communication with a UIO, infrastructure owner. If you have a separate communication between that person to a DLSP, and another person from us directly, whether or not it's all one person or you have different multiple resources, identifying that within your checklist, so that way when an inquiry comes across, you know exactly who to put forward and the contact information to that. Perfect. No, that's really good. Anything else that you guys can think of? Once again, as a project owner looking to start, their project, what are some of the first initial notification, like, before the even formal submission comes through? Do you feel as infrastructure owner it's worth to have those preliminary conversation that a project is coming along your way, understanding those projects before you get the formal submission come through, whereas there's timeframes and timelines involved at that point? Do you believe there's an importance to that as infrastructure owners here to have those initial communication from a project owner coming into your project area or to your infrastructure area, and just kind of getting the scope ahead of time to understand what you require as well too during those projects?
I have a small suggestion. Basically, if the cost, and I'm sure it's going to be the case, if the cost of digging an infrastructure locate is being bared by the contractor and not the infrastructure owner, then we can make the process a bit simpler. The contractor can, as soon as the infrastructure owner get a request, they should identify whatever underground infrastructure they have and
Mhm.
communicate it to the contractor.
That's
And
correct.
from there on, everything should be on the contractor part.
Mhm.
Because if the contractor is bearing the cost, there is no point in involving the infrastructure owner again and again, again and again. They have
Right.
provided all the layouts, the physical pictures, and if it's more complicated than that, if the infrastructure owner does not have layouts or something like that, they need to send someone, then they can schedule that and move on from there.
Yes.
As a principal process, we can make it simpler.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's definitely what a DL dedicated locator is that they're putting a resource in front, a single locate resource to locate all the infrastructure within the project area, right? So officially what you need to do is just identify if your infrastructure is affected or not. If your infrastructure is affected, then the project owner is, or in this case the contractor is, putting forward that they have a resource on hand at that point and will be utilizing under a dedicated locator. So now from your end, you'll be working with that resource to provide, to agree on the dedicated locator with the project owner to start off with, and then from there, working through the agreement, such as, how do you want them to locate your infrastructure and such, and providing the mapping. Leah?
Yeah, so just going back to your preliminary conversations piece, I think having those up front is actually very beneficial as an underground infrastructure owner, especially a high risk one. It's good to know that something is coming. It's good to know what the scope is. If they have a certain DLSP in mind, those conversations are also good to have up front. There could be contractual obligations that need to be met between the DLSP and the UIO. So again, just giving as much notice as possible so that when the formal notice does come in, we already have had the opportunity to reach out to the DLSP, get a sense of, the structure of their company, the locators, and see if they meet our requirements. So yeah, preliminary communication, I think definitely goes a very long way.
No, that's definitely the push for that. Do you believe, as infrastructure owner, and when we spoke of it previously on the on the milestones where we talk about governance, governance of setting weekly meetings or touch point between the UIO and the DLSP or the project owner. Have you had any experience of that, where that became very fruitful and made it more open, clear communication between parties, where rather than having or waiting for each to be communicated with, there could be obviously the initial reach out, and then from there, until the process is sorted out between yourself and that DLSP or that project owner, there could be a biweekly or weekly touch point setups. And, this could be whether or not a call or email, just to see where the status and the projection is, just to help them identify where you guys are within the progress, right?
Yeah, so I think there definitely is some benefit to it. I can't really say myself that I have put in scheduled calls as the process goes along, but just very regular touch points. So that could be weekly, it could be bi-weekly, it could be every other day, depending on, what part of the process that you're in. But definitely keeping that constant line of communication between the UIO and the DLSP as you go through the process, so then everyone is on the same page of where we're at, what's required to move forward, et cetera.
Perfect. And then just tying into that as well too, I did mention it on the slide there, the DLSP assessment portion. I think that's very important to have in their checklist. As a new project owner, you wanted to utilize dedicated locator, but you don't have a DLSP in hand yet, or thought of who resources that you'll be looking at. This is something of a beneficial to look into. How do you would assess a DLSP before onboarding them to take on as a DLSP for your project? Looking at their looking at their training needs, and obviously sometimes there's certifications or experiences that you want to understand, because they are putting, as project owner, you are putting this forward for underground infrastructure owners. So part of that, as underground infrastructure owner, you do have certain requirements and assessments as well too that you look for in a DLSP. So having that, what do you see as infrastructure owner? And this could be differing to each different one. Everyone has different process and how you qualify or look into the dedicated located service provider. What are some of those things? What are some of your requirements in there? What are some of the things that you assess their experience and such like that through the approval process, right? So that's definitely something that could be looked at.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, and I mean, I'm just speaking on behalf of Hydro One as a high risk infrastructure owner. I know that everyone kind of has their own set of requirements, but high risk infrastructure owners require locators to have at least 2 years of public locating experience. There also is a training and auditing component that the DLSP would have to go through, and that would be at either the cost of the DLSP or the project owner. So that's something to definitely keep in mind as well, because those costs aren't always taken into consideration when initially selecting a DLSP.
So
Yeah,
that could go a long way as well too in those preliminary discussion to lay these all out, right?
100%. Yeah.
So and this is a bonus round. Once again, it's supposed to be interactive, but I'm filling this out. But I want everyone's little bit of participation here. As UIOs now within this stage, what are some of the preliminary checklists you want to go into? So Leah just shared it. There is possibly understanding what are your requirements on your onboarding process and such, right? And communicating this clear from the get-go. You're obviously going to get a reach out if there is preliminary conversation occurring, setting this precedency out to indicate what your process of onboarding is, what are the documentation that are required in terms of MSAs, NDAs, and such. Get that across the board already, so when the official notice is out, everyone can comply within the actual time frame, right? So as infrastructure owners, what else can you guys think of on your side in this preliminary steps to better prepare yourself with project owners as well too? Anything you guys could think of?
I mean, I think we would need to know as soon as possible who they would be considering as their DLSP. That provides us an opportunity to look and see if we have contracts in place, if we have worked with the DLSP in the past. So having that information up front is definitely key on our end.
Yep, definitely. So I'll put that as who the DLSP would be, and I'll put that into tying that into preliminary conversation as well too that would occur for the reach outs in there. I was hoping for a little bit more of a participation here. I'm pretty sure everyone in this call have gone through a DL notice, and maybe share those experiences as well to what were some of the difficulties you may had that if it's changed or if it was part of a checklist, would it make a difference between your time frame? Catherine, you raise your hand there?
Yeah, in regards to steps 1 and 2, it would be nice as a UIO to be included in those steps.
Yes. So that's where we really encourage the preliminary conversations, right? So as a project owner, identifying your work areas there and identifying possibly who may be the affected infrastructure owners. So if I'm going to a project area where I know of the municipalities and such, as the project owner and doing construction, there for sure there is permitting involved in it, right? Within that permitting, there could be preliminary conversation as well too from the get-go to say we are applying for this permitting, but as well too as a heads up that they'll be utilizing a dedicated locator and kind of get those conversations started from the preliminary start. Obviously as infrastructure owner, the more you know and the more what's coming, it's a lot better than being provided the notice, and then from their point on, you have a 10-day time frame to respond and agree on the dedicated locator and kind of provide the mapping and such. So definitely we want to encourage this on both sides from us a project owner perspective, and it's a UIO. So this is where infrastructure owners, there is a no to as well to understanding what projects are coming along your areas, especially large scale projects, or as the legislation is now, we know the broadband projects are doing a blitz all the way through Ontario, right? So understanding that there may be broadband projects within your servicing areas, identifying who those ISPs are and reaching out to them already. If they haven't reached out to you, reach out and see if they're using dedicated locator, that they're mandated to use dedicated locator if it's in some cases there. And have those preliminary conversation to see who they'll be using, how they'll be submitting the notice or their work areas and such like that. So definitely, that's where we want to encourage that preliminary conversation in there. Great. Anything else? Okay, so we'll just move on here to open Q&A. We put together quite a few of a checklist here. We'll refine it a little bit better. And what really my goal is towards this is that we go through the milestones and just keep in mind, this is a general milestones within the dedicated locator submission process. It doesn't necessarily change between the process now where it's a manual form towards the near future of the DL portal. So relatively the milestones are plucked out to where, aligned to the legislation itself and obviously the requirements per stakeholder involved within the process. So understanding this directly and providing and getting a checklist set on hand can help you just be prepared for any projects coming through, right? There is, we're approaching 2025. There will be a lot of push in 2025 for the completion of these projects. So we just on our previous slide there, we see a spike in submission of DL projects just in August alone. The most we ever seen in a single month since the inception of this project, right? So we had 21 total submissions. Several of those are the same servicing areas or just kind of neighboring servicing areas. So 21 is quite a lot to kind of go through as an infrastructure owner all at once within the time frame. So just having that preparedness ahead of time, considering the checklist ahead of time, not just for project owners to understand who they have within their areas, but also underground infrastructure owners to better prepare you. So in the coming webinars that we'll try to touch base again to the milestones and each milestone. So the next one we'll go through is infrastructure owners, and we kind of touch point a bit here. And I promise you next time I'll make sure I have something up and running that where everyone could share and chimney in themselves. But our end goal here is really producing a foundation of a checklist for each stakeholder within the process. And this is something that could be shared across to the industry just to, better align everyone and have the understanding of the DL submission process, have the understanding where the timeframes are within the process and your requirements and such. Okay, so in the meantime here, we'll just start off with any questions you may have, within the DL Pacific. Just this is an open forum for everyone. Share your experience, share your concerns. And yeah, we'll go from there. I know it's Monday and it's early morning, and I switched it up from before, from midweek to afternoon. So I can understand it's a little bit of a slow start, and also we can consider that it's a holiday today for federal. So I thank you guys again for joining us, for those who can join us today. And yeah, if there's any other questions, I'll give the floor another minute or so, and then we can give you guys 15 minutes back. Okay, great. So I do thank everyone again for coming out today. I apologize for a little bit of technical difficulties on the bit of a workshop that we're trying to work with. I'll ensure that we get that up and running next time around. You know our contact here, dl@ontario1call.ca. If our team is readily available any given time. Do you have any concerns, issues, and you know, kind of going through the process? I encourage everyone here to continue this on every monthly, just to get updates and such. We do have quite exciting months ahead of us with the DL portal in the beta testings, and you know, in the coming year we're looking full utilization of that. So keep a eye out for our postings for any future workshops and webinar directly to the DL portal, and we'll keep you guys posted to that. But aside from that, I do appreciate your time again, and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.